You sit down to work, you already feel tired. You haven't started yet, but the exhaustion is there. Before the task, before the effort, before the actual demand even arrives, and you assume it's laziness, or lack of motivation, or that you're just not disciplined enough. But what if none of that is true? What if the fatigue you're feeling is neurological, a warning signal from a system that's already been pushed too far, not by work, but by everything else? The constant scroll, the notifications, the rapid context switches, the background hum of information. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between physical exertion and cognitive load. It tracks depletion, and right now, your brain is already running a deficit. Before you even begin, dopamine is not a reward. It's a prediction chemical. It anticipates effort. It signals whether something is worth pursuing. And when your system has been flooded with easy dopamine, from feeds, from short videos, from instant replies, the baseline rises, but the signal weakens. Your brain begins to expect high stimulation for low effort, and when you ask it to focus on something that requires sustained attention, something boring, something difficult, it registers the task as undervalued. The signal doesn't fire, and you experience that as resistance, as lack of interest, as fatigue. But it's not fatigue, it's dopamine miscalibration, and it can be recalibrated, not through willpower, but through systematic load management. The prefrontal cortex manages executive function. It holds goals, inhibits impulses. Plan C Kansas stays on task, but it's metabolically expensive. It runs on glucose and oxygen, and it fatigues faster than any other region. Every decision you make, every distraction you resist, every tab you keep open, every conversation you switch between, all of it depletes the same resource pool, and when that pool is low, focus becomes physically harder, not because you're weak, but because the system is under-resourced. You can't willpower your way through a depleted prefrontal cortex. You can only rest it, or reduce the demand. That's not a limitation. That's biology. Most people try to increase focus by adding more stimulation, louder music, stronger coffee, more urgency, more pressure. But that doesn't restore the system. It just masks the depletion. And over time, it makes the problem worse. Because stimulation burns through the same glucose reserves that focus depends on, you're borrowing energy from the future. And eventually, the loan comes due. The alternative is not to push harder. It's to create conditions where focus costs less, where attention doesn't require constant effort to maintain, where the environment supports the task instead of fighting it. That's what discipline actually is. Not forcing yourself to focus, but designing a space where focus becomes the path of least resistance. Here's what that looks like. You remove the tabs, you silence the phone, you close the door, you clear the desk, you set one task, one window, one direction, and you stay there. Not forever, just for 20 minutes. You're not trying to finish. You're training the system to associate stillness with output, to experience focus without interruption, to let dopamine recalibrate around depth instead of novelty. And after 20 minutes, you stop, even if you want to continue, because the goal is not productivity, it's reconditioning. You're teaching your brain that sustained attention is safe, that it doesn't lead to boredom or exhaustion, that it leads to completion, and that completion feels good. The first few sessions will feel uncomfortable. Your system will resist. It will generate urges, restlessness, mental noise. That's normal. That's withdrawal, not from dopamine, but from stimulation. Your nervous system has been running in reactive mode, constantly responding, constantly shifting, and now you're asking it to hold still, to stay with one input, one task, one thread. That requires effort, but not the kind you think. It's not mental effort, it's regulatory effort. You're asking your autonomic system to stay in a state it's not used to, calm, focused, internally stable, and that takes practice. Not discipline, practice. Most people quit here because it feels like failure, but it's not, it's adaptation. Your brain is learning a new baseline, a new threshold, a new rhythm, and that learning happens slowly. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because neuroplasticity is a slow process. It requires repetition, consistency, time. You're not building motivation, you're building capacity. And capacity doesn't show up overnight. It shows up after weeks of small sessions, after your nervous system realizes that focus doesn't kill you, that stillness is survivable, that depth is rewarding. That's when the loop begins to shift, not because you became more disciplined, but because the system recalibrated. Now, let's talk about tools, because environment matters. If your workspace is cluttered, if your screen is filled with distractions, if your lighting is harsh, if your posture is collapsed, you're asking your nervous system to regulate under stress. And it won't. It will default to the easiest available behavior, which is avoidance, or distraction, or low-level scrolling. The solution is not motivation, it's structure, a clean desk, a single monitor, a visible timer, a notebook for stray thoughts, a water bottle within reach. These are not productivity hacks. They're cognitive load stabilizers. They reduce the number of micro-decisions your prefrontal cortex has to make, and that frees up energy for the actual task. One tool worth mentioning. A simple analog timer. Not a phone timer. Not a browser extension. A physical object that sits on your desk and ticks. Why? Because it externalizes time. You no longer have to track it internally. You can hear it, you can see it, and that removes one layer of cognitive load. It also creates a boundary. When the timer runs, you work. When it stops, you rest. No negotiation, no extension, no exception. That's not rigidity. That's clarity. Your nervous system doesn't respond well to ambiguity. It responds to structure, and a timer provides that, consistently, predictably, without judgment. Another tool, a distraction capture notebook. Keep it next to you. Not for ideas, not for planning, just for interruptions. When a thought pulls your attention, when you remember something you need to do, when your mind starts wandering, you write it down. One line, no elaboration, and you return to the task. This does two things. It prevents the thought from looping, and it reassures your brain that the thought is captured, that it won't be lost, and that reassurance is enough to let it go. Without the notebook, your brain will keep reminding you, because it doesn't trust that you'll remember. But with the notebook, the loop stops, and your attention stabilizes. It's a small tool, but it has a large effect. Now let's address recovery. Because focus is not infinite. It depletes, and it needs to be restored, not through more stimulation, but through actual rest. That means stepping away from the screen, closing your eyes, letting your mind wander without direction, walking without a podcast, sitting without input. Most people fill every gap with content, and that prevents recovery. Because recovery requires low stimulation. It requires the nervous system to drop into parasympathetic mode, to reset, to process, to consolidate. And that only happens when you stop feeding it input, when you let it be quiet. That's not wasted time. That's system maintenance. And without it, focus becomes unsustainable. Here's the thing most people miss. Discipline is not a personality trait. It's a feedback loop. When you experience focus without distraction, when you complete a task without interruption, when you finish a session and feel clear instead of drained, your brain registers that. It updates its prediction model. It begins to associate focused work with reward, and that makes the next session easier. Not because you got stronger, but because the loop reinforced itself. That's how habits form. Not through force, but through repetition of a rewarded pattern. And the reward doesn't have to be external, it can be internal. The feeling of completion, the absence of residual tension, the clarity that follows depth, that's enough, if you let it register. But if you interrupt that loop, if you check your phone mid-session, if you switch tasks before finishing, if you let distraction break the boundary, the loop weakens. Your brain learns that focus is optional, that interruption is normal, that depth doesn't lead to reward, and the next session becomes harder. Not because the task changed, but because the pattern degraded. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. One focused session every day is more effective than 5 chaotic hours once a week, because the nervous system learns from repetition, not from effort, and repetition builds the loop. Slowly, steadily, without drama. Let's go deeper. There's a neurological concept called cognitive residue. When you switch tasks, a part of your attention stays with the previous task. It doesn't fully release, it lingers, and that residue accumulates. Every time you check a message, every time you glance at a notification, every time you open a new tab, you're leaving attention behind. And the more you switch, the more fragmented your focus becomes, until eventually, you're not fully present anywhere. You're split across 10 incomplete threads. And that feels like brain fog. But it's not fog, it's fragmentation. And the solution is not more focus. It's fewer switches. Finish one thing fully before starting another. That's not rigid. That's efficient. That's how the system was designed to work. This is also why multitasking is a myth. Your brain doesn't do two things at once. It rapidly switches between them, and every switch costs energy, costs time, costs clarity. You think you're saving time by doing both, but you're actually slowing both down and producing lower quality output in each. The research is clear. Single tasking outperforms multitasking in speed, in accuracy, in retention, and in subjective ease. But people resist it because it feels slower, because it requires patience, because it conflicts with the urgency addiction most systems encourage. But urgency is not productivity, it's reactivity, and reactivity drains the system faster than anything else. So what does this mean practically? It means you stop glorifying busyness. You stop measuring your day by how much you juggled, and you start measuring it by how deeply you engaged. One task, fully completed, is worth more than 10 tasks not because of output, but because of system health. Because when you finish something, your nervous system releases a completion signal, a small dopamine pulse, a sense of closure, and that signal reinforces focus. It tells your brain that depth works, that sustained attention leads to reward, and that makes the next task easier. This is the dopamine discipline loop. Not forced, not motivated, but systematically reinforced. Through structure, through repetition, through rest, through completion. And here's the final piece. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to never get distracted. You just need to notice when you do, and return, without judgment, without narrative, without making it mean something about your character. Distraction is not failure. It's a signal. It tells you the system is fatigued, or the task is unclear, or the environment is misaligned. And when you treat it as information instead of failure, you can adjust, you can simplify, you can rest, you can redesign. That's not weakness. That's calibration. That's how high performers operate. They don't push through everything. They notice, they adapt, and they protect the system. Because the system is the foundation, and without it, nothing else works. This is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more aligned with how your brain actually functions. Not how you think it should. Not how productivity culture tells you it must, but how it actually operates. When you understand that, when you design around that, focus stops being a battle. It becomes a rhythm, a loop, a system, and that system compounds. Not through motivation, but through neurobiology, through repetition, through clarity, through rest. That's the dopamine discipline loop, and it's available to you right now. If you stop fighting your brain and start working with it. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical, psychological, or professional advice. Consult a licensed professional for personalized guidance.